at this point, there can be no doubt whatsoever that the White Hats are winning and that real change is happening. Let's start with the big news from Canada. The minority partners of the government of Justin Trudeau, the NDP, have announced they're leaving the government, which means that Canada has to have an election, and opinion polls show that Trudeau is the most hated prime minister in almost all history, maybe all history in Canada, and will be gone completely. And after that, you can be sure that there will be criminal charges. Let's make it clear, he is a mass murderer. And the problem, though, is much deeper than that. His father, Pierre Trudeau, was the person who handed over the control of the Bank of Canada to the Rothschilds and to the Khazarian mafia. From 1938 until 1972, Canada's central bank was a government-owned institution. And they financed World War II. They built the Trans-Canada Highway. They paid for university education. They built the canals linking the Great Lakes to the Atlantic. All this without taxes and without debt. Now Canadians are paying 40% in taxes or more, and this is all unnecessary. All they need to do is once again turn the Bank of Canada into a government-owned and government-run institution and not a debt slavery instrument, which it is now. And that was his father, Pierre Trudeau. And of course, I'd like to mention, my father was a diplomat in Cuba shortly after the revolution, and my mother was friends with Che Guevara. And my father ended up being kicked out of Cuba because he was helping people escape from Fidel Castro's concentration camps. And there was a lot of murder and stuff going on. And my parents were witnesses, and they hated it, and they helped people escape. They originally were friendly and had good ideas about the new regime in Cuba. But when they actually saw the concentration camps and murder, they fought against it. By contrast, Pierre Trudeau, let his wife be cuckolded by, Fidel Castro. So this tells you what sort of scum took over the Canadian government. And this problem runs a lot deeper than that. I'm sorry to say, but Pierre Poilievre, the head of the opposition, is also, he's accepted COVID bribes through his wife, and he is compromised. Basically, at this point, the Canadian military need to understand that civilian government in Canada has been compromised by Satan-worshipping gangsters. And most of the politicians, I'm not going to say all, but the ones who have huge unaccountable income, in other words, who've accepted bribes, need to be removed wholesale before democracy and rule of law can be restored to Canada. But anyway, it's good to see that Trudeau, that vile scumbag, is being removed. This is a big sign that things are happening. That's not the only sign. In New York City now, the National Guard has been deployed at the request of the governor to deal with crime in the subways and other places. This is going to happen in other cities as well. There's also Venezuelan gangs attacking oil fields and stuff. So, a civil war has de facto begun in the United States, but the White Hats are definitely on the march. Another thing that's happened is that there has been some kind of shutdown of flights in Holland and a cut off of all IT. And this came at the same time as a huge amount of military flights were going on. And we're hearing that there's been a wholesale arrest of Satanists in Holland. That country was a real nest, and it's apparently being cleaned up. There are other signs. I've heard from British intelligence that Balmoral Castle, that's the British Royal Castle in Scotland, is now a crime scene because they have been carrying out human sacrifices there annually for a very long time, and now they're digging into it. So I've heard this could be the end of the current British monarchy, but that's another thing that is going on that's very different from what's happened before. Also, in Japan, NHK, which is the national broadcaster, had a 20-minute program about vaccine damage and how the vaccines are toxic. This is important because this is NHK. This is the government saying the vaccines were a murder. And this is a sign that a process has begun here too against these people. And I noticed that Anthony Fauci still has not appeared. So apparently he supposedly stuffed toilet paper down his throat and killed himself. That's what's going to happen to a lot of these people. Bourla of Pfizer is definitely a hunted man if he's still around. But we're going to get all these bastards, every single one of them, I promise you. I'm just going to check my notes. Okay. Another thing that was Katalin Novak, the president of Hungary. This is actually somewhat old news, but the Russians brought it to my attention. She resigned publicly earlier this year. She basically pardoned 25 pedophiles. And the fact that she was forced to resign on public TV is a sign that they're cleaning up in Hungary, which is actually the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and not just Hungary. And in Germany, too, I noticed the patriots are taking back the country. Germany is now buying oil and gas from Russia again. They're not buying it from the Rockefellers. So things are happening, but it's definitely not over by any means. The Rothschilds just had a big meeting with Blackstone and all those guys where they cut their, Ukraine's debt. Basically, they're admitting that their Ukraine gamble has been a money loser, but they're still obviously, trying to keep that whole scam going. So the French Rothschilds are still a problem. I thought they were going to work with us, but I'm no longer sure about that. And we're going to have to see some kind of move against them because they're still not cooperating. But that's going to happen. And we expect more things to happen soon. As I've already mentioned, Elizabeth Truss, the former UK Prime Minister, went public to say that the head of the Bank of England has more power than the Prime Minister. That's not the way it's supposed to be. The fact that a former Prime Minister is saying that in public is a sign that the military is now aware that civilian governments have been compromised. So things are happening, but it's going to take, there's a lot involved. There's so many people who have been accepting these bribes that is still, the process is still ongoing. There's going to be a lot happening now between now and October. There's big negotiations with the Chinese and the Russians and the Indians to replace the UN or reform the UN so that it actually reflects the world. So there's high-level negotiations going on. And again, there's a lot of stuff that I cannot talk about for security reasons, but there are big moves involving military action against these criminals that are being planned and will take place, and you will see it in the news. You'll see it in places like the New York Times and CNN, and it won't just be on the internet, which, thanks to the NSA, has been the Gutenberg press that has allowed this change to happen around the world. Let me just... Okay, there's a couple other things. There's problems in Israel. We know that Netanyahu at this point is gone. What they've been showing is an obvious CG with blinking and stuff. So he's gone, and we noticed that Rabbi Moshe Sternbuck has come out. He's one of the top, if not the top rabbi in Israel, saying that Judaism and Zionism are opposed to each other. Zionism is not Judaism, and the Jews are going to be liberated. However, there is still an ongoing vaccine murder in Gaza. I read this morning that 187,000 children have been poisoned with the vaccine. This has to stop. I guarantee you everybody involved in that will be hunted down and killed along with their entire families. So if you're still out there trying to vaccinate Gazans, you better stop now. Well, anyway, things have started. It's September now, and this is just the beginning. Let's see if we see Obama arrested publicly. That would be a big sign for the United States. And I think Keir Starmer in England, he has to go too. He's a blackmailed pedophile. But It's going to happen. The wheels are turning. There's no longer any doubt. The White Hats are on the march, and we will win, and we will liberate humanity from this satanic cult. Okay, well, that's what I have to say for myself today. Now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers.
Hi, Ben. We have our first questions for today. It's evidence a very small percentage of the U.S. population are aware of the fact the U.S. has been under military occupation and continuity of government since Trump was elected in 2016. The laws and executive orders detailing military occupation are public and can be found on .gov and .mil websites, and alliance country planes can be tracked every day. One can find evidence of Earth Alliance within 30 countries conducting operations every day since the EOs were signed by Donald J. Trump in 2017, good through 2021. Donald J. Trump's capitulation tour just after taking office was the beginning of the largest military operation known. The underground war over the past 8 years has been silent spiritual sting operation against the cabal with the help from upstairs. What are your thoughts on this?
I know that the military they never handed over control to Biden and Obama and that whole fake government. They never controlled the nuclear suitcase. This is, I understand, and that the military White Hats have been working. However, they've been forced to hide in the Cheyenne Mountain, and we were all forced to endure this horrific Biden show on our TVs and our public airwaves, and basically, I think what we're seeing is a battle between the military White Hats and the families who own the transnational corporations, and this has been a very tough battle, but definitely things are changing. We noticed that the head of Meta, Zuckerberg, went out and said he was forced to censor information about COVID-19. That's in all the news. That's a sign something changed. And we're seeing other news items and corporate media starting to tell the truth. So I can see that the military is finally getting the upper hand, and they still got their work cut out for them, because this is not just about the United States. The other thing I did mention in my report, but it's really big news, is that White Hats, these are people I know personally, took over the tin mines in Myanmar that control 2/3 of the tin that China gets. And the Chinese military invaded Myanmar and were defeated and lost at least 2,000 troops and retreated. This means that the control of the tin means that China's automobile industry and electronics industries and other industries that rely on tin are now in a very tough spot. So this is a good negotiating card for the White Hats as we come up with a replacement for the current post-war international structure. So that's something that's we need to mention. But yeah, there can be no doubt the military White Hats are finally getting the upper hand, and that it's becoming visible for everybody to see. As I mentioned in my talk, places like the government of Japan's media are now reporting vaccine truth. This is just and the removal of Trudeau. All this is a sign that the White Hats are finally close to victory. So yeah, I agree basically with what was said there. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Much is being made of the fact that Kamala Harris is supposedly a man. As such, she/he belongs to a growing list of political figures who are in the limelight for the wrong reasons. In America, we have Big Mike. In France, Macron's wife, who is supposedly Macron's uncle. And down under, we had Jacinta Jack Ardern. Though strictly speaking, she is a New Zealander, not an Australian. What exactly is the point of these men faking to be women, and who does it benefit?
The idea is that they have to have something they can be blackmailed with before they're put in a public office, so that they have to obey. So they don't want anybody who can't be blackmailed. So marrying a man pretending to be a woman is a sign that, okay, you've got something on me and I have to obey you. And by the way, I was told by the French resistance, the French intelligence, that Macron's wife, Brigitte, is actually his father, and they're both members of the Rothschild family. But yeah, basically the system that happened was that in the West, there was a stealth takeover of civilian governments, and everybody was put in power recently has to be blackmailed and obedient, or they won't be in power. And that's what the military is now trying to clean up. But marrying a transvestite is just a way to say I'm blackmailable, so please put me in power. Okay, next question.
Hi, Ben. A jet jubilee during an administration with a center-right president and a center-left vice president would be a balanced strategy, not giving too much credit, favor, and power to any single party. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a good start, and these people are genuinely talented. But again, it's got to be a worldwide thing. All the debts held by the developing countries need to be written off. It's not just an American thing. And I personally think at this point, Canada and the United States should join, become the United States of North America, and build a new capital. And I don't mind if Donald J. Trump becomes the first president of the United States of North America, if that's what the people want. Okay, next question.
Hi, Ben. We have our last question for today. You mentioned last week that you expect RFK to replace Vance. When do you expect this to be announced?
I don't know. I was told this by senior CIA that this was a long-term plan. Let's see how it unfolds, but certainly it would be a smart move because I've got nothing against Mr. Vance, but clearly RFK Jr., and I apologize for keeping saying JFK Jr., but is a better candidate for vice president. So anyway, I hope they take power before November and we don't go through this fake election. Okay, well, that's it. And hopefully next week there will be even more good news.